Hey, today we are in Ponca City, Oklahoma. Today we are in Ponca City, Oklahoma, and what a difference a week makes. We were supposed to make this trip last week and it was in the teens with snow and ice, and today it's going to be close to 80 degrees.
So we're starting on the corner of 4th and Grand. As far as we can tell, Grand seems to be sort of the main street intersecting downtown, and as always our focus is on the little downtown. Enjoy!
So this is our first video of 2022. When we left off in 2021, we were discussing the possibility of staying in the Wichita area. So we have decided to do that. So we'll be around for at least another year using that as our home base. On this particular day, we were actually on our way to Tulsa, Oklahoma, when we found this cute little city called Ponca City, Oklahoma. So as always, Caroline, why don't you tell us just a little bit about Ponca City?
Ponca City was founded in 1899 by B.S. Barnes. It was founded as a railroad town, and it had a good location because it was near both Lake Ponca and the Arkansas River. They then found oil there, and one of the early leaders, E.W. Marland, became the founder of what we eventually knew as Conoco Oil. If you're in Ponca City, you can tour Marland's mansion as well as the Conoco Museum. Current population in Ponca City is about 25,000.
So in the first part of the video, we saw the old train depot, which was now a coffee shop, I believe, and the city hall, the library, and some statues to some of the founders that Caroline mentioned.
It was fun to get out on our first trip of 2022, both having nice weather, and we love taking the back roads instead of the interstates. So we actually went through several small towns before we ended up in Ponca City, but it was nice to just get back on a road trip.
Yes, it was nice to get back out on the road, but it probably would have been even nicer to reacquaint myself with the video camera. Because in full disclosure, basically I do the video, Caroline does the pictures, and on this particular trip I did something wrong with the camera, so when we got done I realized everything was recorded on an ultra high speed, like a time lapse. So we actually had to go back and retrace our steps a second time so I could capture the video. So these don't sync up quite as well as they usually do, although I think I did a pretty good job of retracing our steps. Definitely. Lesson learned.
As we've noted before, one of the cool things in a lot of these small towns is the prevalence of art on all these buildings. Some of these murals are old, some are new, but they're all really cool.
When you visit these small towns, make sure you wander off the main road. Go a block or two in and then go through the alleyways, because oftentimes that's where you'll find some really cool old advertisements on the side of the building, such as this. Or new to look old, such as this.
Behind us is the Robin Hood Flour Grain Elevator. Prior to 1924, this was actually the Ponca City Milling Company. Currently it's vacant, but as of 2019 was on the National Historic Register. And starting in 2018, they began support for murals on the side. And if you want to see cool murals on a grain elevator, look at our Salina video.
Yeah, those are incredible.
Amazing. So we've migrated back downtown to Grand, the main avenue there. And in a minute, you're gonna see the Cress building. And that might be familiar because it's shown up in our other videos, in our Hutchinson, Salina, and Wichita videos. So we looked them up. Cress was a company founded in 1896, and it was a 5 and dime that had a lunch counter. And they were all over the place. They eventually sold out, and in 2001, all remnants were defunct.
Speaking of cool old buildings, we're just getting to the Ponca Theater, which we'll talk a little bit more about here shortly when we get a better front view of it. So there's the one salvageable piece of video from my mistake. These are just more really cool art along the side of the building. Obviously they're right next to a railroad track, hence the railroad theme.
They're really incredible. So this cool building here is the historic Nonamaker Hall. It was built in 1929 and owned by the Nonamaker family until the 90s. Now it's undergoing restoration. We're not sure what it's going to be when it's done, but it's cool to see these old buildings being preserved.
Definitely, like a lot of the small towns we visit, there's a noticeable sea change. Downtowns were largely abandoned, really getting pretty much out of control by the 70s and even into the 80s. But usually around 1990s is when their kind of interest peaked in restoring them. And thankfully, there's a lot of people that are very much committed to preserving the downtown. And in Ponca City's case, probably the benchmark restoration was for this place right here, the Ponca Theater. Can you tell us about that?
The Ponca Theater is really cool, and it was built in 1927. It's also on the historic register. It showed vaudeville acts until the 40s. It closed in 1985, but the Ponca Theater Company bought it in the 90s, and it reopened in 1994. So it's still in use for both theater productions and some movies.
Yeah, really a fantastic landmark. So at the Nonamaker building, we made the switch to the other side and started working our way back. And now we're kind of on the side streets, just checking out the buildings a block away and also walking through the alleyways. And again, I sound like a broken record, but sometimes that's what you want to do because you find some really interesting things, such as this right here.
There was tons of cool murals in these alleys. Fun to see people taking the effort to improve even the backside of the buildings.
Yes, we should all strive to improve our backsides.
It's fun going to both big cities and small towns, but I think we've really enjoyed venturing into small towns in areas we haven't spent much time, like Oklahoma. As we said, we're on our way to Tulsa, which will be our next video. We plan to go to Oklahoma City, but if you have other suggestions for Oklahoma, put them in the comments.
So if I recall, we're just about ready to find something to eat. We just found a little deli. I can't remember what it was called. It was actually at the back of a store, kind of a general
shop.
Yeah, purpose store. Very basic, sandwiches, things like that, chips. So hit the spot. On that note, let's wrap this up. All right, what do you think of downtown
Ponca City.
Ponca City?
I thought it was fun. I mean, this is a much bigger city than you would have guessed, but most of it is the new part that's spread out from here. The downtown hasn't been gentrified, but there is tons of old buildings and really cool. We saw a Woolworths building and all kinds of fun things, so I enjoyed it.
Yep, as always, get off the couch, enjoy yourself, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers!